We always think of stress as being a negative, but the fact is that we find that stress can be very positive. It can cause us to grow. It can cause us to be resilient, to handle problems, and go on. But as Ann has said, it's never going to go away. There's going to be a new stress level on some other topic, one we don't anticipate. So.
And Father Dave, you're in a very unique place where you are being in a maximum security prison. So you've seen people at a threshold of stress probably as few people have. What things have you learned about how people cope with it and even how they face it?
Well, they cope with it basically, first of all, it's very hard to cope with it. I mean, you're confined, you can't be with your family and things like that. Some of them cope with it by prayer. Prayer is very important. There's a great poem that was written by a prisoner who said, this poem simply says, one day outside my prison window a little sparrow came to me. I said, "Oh, little sparrow, how's it feel to be so free?" The little bird looked confused and said, "Oh, I thought the prisoner was me, because you have the ability to pray, and only prayer can set you free." And that's what we've got to understand. That's what these guys in prison have got to understand, and the gals in prison have got to understand, that only prayer can set them free.
I think the other thing, I was really struck, by the comment, in terms of how we can use it to be a force for, change and resilience in our life, and it can be a positive thing. I think, too, that in some sense, we may not always, at the moment we're experiencing stress, we may not perceive it as a positive thing. Sometimes it's with the vantage point of a little bit of time and distance that we can understand how a really stressful period in our life was a source of great growth. Some writers talk about how we sometimes see the back of God's head as He has moved through our lives, and I think about that image, and I think about various moments in my own life. Some years ago we had a family member who was very ill, and we were very frightened for a period of time, and it was a source of great stress and great anxiety, and happily we came through that period, and that person was returned to good health. But I look at that period now, and it was incredibly stressful, and yet I can see the growth. And it was a time when our family really drew together, when we really felt the love of family, of friends, and we felt very close to God. So I think that, in some sense, that is stress is part of life, and it may be sometimes that we don't see the meaning of some of that stress until a later juncture.
But it is a growth factor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I recall when Barbara was dying, and in her last year, and she said, "We have never been closer than we are." And we were brought close by the stress of her sickness and what it would mean to those of us who were left behind. She never passed away; she just passed over, and we got to keep that in mind.
I don't know that I have any real words of wisdom in terms of how you deal with stress, and I think we all do it probably in some different ways, except the one thing that does strike me is that having a purpose in life is a very important, I think, component in terms of coping with stress. To have a sense of direction and to be focused on, where it is that you're headed, and I think certainly faith can be a central feature of that. If we have a sense that we're on a journey toward God, that can help us. It doesn't alleviate the stress, but maybe it helps us to understand it in a little different context at the time as we're going through.